The Economy 2 update for Space Engineers 1 is here, and as the name suggests, it completely overhauls the economy system in Space Engineers 1, and additionally adds a bunch of other interesting new features. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. And just before we continue, later in the video, we'll be doing a giveaway for the DLC that has been released alongside this update, so don't forget to stay tuned for that. So, Economy 2. Obviously, this completely overhauls all the features to do with economy. They've remade all the NPC trade stations, updating them visually with the new blocks that have been added since the Economy 1 release. And additionally, they now take advantage of some of the new functionality of the blocks added since the first Economy release, like the event controller for example. They've also completely overhauled all the ships that are sold at economy stations, once again taking advantage of all the new blocks. And all of the contracts in the game, and all the rewards for completing those contracts have also been completely remade and rebalanced, alongside a host of other economy improvements. And also, a lot of this was previously not moddable, but now the economy system is much more moddable than it is before, so I'm sure modders will be taking advantage of that. 17 new trade stations have been added to both the surface of planets and also in space, and as I said, they've been visually and functionally overhauled with a lot of the new blocks that have been added since the first economy release. However, new blocks aren't the only thing that's been added to them, as they've also received a new addition inside of them. NPCs, or as the developers have named them, animated NPC characters. Hello buddy, you alright? Oh, he's pointing. Where are you pointing? Now these NPCs don't really do much. They walk around, they look at things, they emote at you, and they sit in chairs, and that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, they are also super cute. Just look at this guy, isn't he adorable? Oh, he just looked at me. Oh, he's waving, isn't that so nice? But the developers have said that this is just the beginning of NPCs. As you can see here, the developers have said that this is the first stage of work that we are ready to release, and a lot of research and experimentation on character pathfinding has taken place. Very interesting. And later on they say, you may remember we promised you another Warfare edition. Our research and experiments around character pathfinding are not over. Curious, what could that mean? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And I promise you, as soon as we do find out, I will definitely be covering it on this channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe to see that. Stations also have a couple of other new features. They have these billboards, which you can see an example of here, that flip between different advertisements. You can see that this one is the Kensington Exchange, and if you interact with one of them, if I go to my GPS, you can see I now have a new GPS location for the Kensington Exchange station. And here I have another one, Fletcher Point. So if I interact with it, I go back to my GPS, you can see I have another GPS location added for the Fletcher Point station. Previously, it was a bit of a pain to find other stations. You had to get lucky and hope that the station you found initially would sell data pads with the locations to more stations on. But now, all stations have the capability to lead you to more stations through these billboards. Additionally, some encounters will have data pads in the loot of them that will lead you to new stations. And on top of that, some encounters will also trigger contracts that will lead you to stations as well. I haven't been able to get this to happen to me personally so far. However, there is a new contract type called grid recovery, so I presume it probably has something to do with that. If we come to a store block on a station, you can see that there are some ships for sale, and as I said earlier, all of these ships have been overhauled with the new blocks, and additionally there is also a couple of new grids that these stations can sell as well. The list of things that stations sell now are ships, obviously, rovers, drones which use the AI blocks that were added a couple of updates ago, and missiles. Yes, you can now buy missiles from space stations. Whilst we're at the store block, there's also a couple of other changes to it. On the top right, it now tells you when the inventory of these stores restock, so you can see it currently that it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds before it restocks. And this is also true of the contract block. It tells you when contracts refresh as well. Additionally, this time has been reduced. Previously it was much longer, but as we'll see in 2 minutes, the restock time is around 10 minutes now, which will refresh this entire inventory on the left of both buying and selling items, and also the contracts will refresh as well, making it much more convenient to use the economy system. There is also a new option at the top, Item Search. And Item Search is also available on what was the contract menu. If I press colon on PC, I can open it up as you can see here, and you can see now that it's called the Economy Overview. You can see I have an active contracts option, which will show me all of my accepted contracts if I had any, and I also have the aforementioned Item Search. So, say I wanted to find a plushie, which are only sold at stores, click my Sabro plushie. Oh look, there's a little friend behind. Anyway, Sabro plushie, search, and there was no listings, very sad. Oh, and he's waving to me, hello! This is because I haven't actually found a station in this world that sells a Sabro plushie, but if I come over to my store, I can see that this station sells superconductors. So if I go back to my item search for superconductors, and press search, you can see it lists 2 stations. This one here, which is 30 meters away because I'm currently at it, and additionally one that is 233 kilometers away, which is a station that is in the orbit of this planet. You can also see the price. These stations both sell it for the same value, but if I'd found other stations potentially from different factions, the price would vary between them. And in the bottom right, I can press create GPS marker, and you can see that it's created a new GPS for Tulane Station, and it tells me that the station is selling superconductors for the price that we saw earlier. This is another feature that will make the economy system much easier to use, obviously with the caveat that you have to actually find all the stations first, which has also been made much easier. We just keep on winning, I guess. As I mentioned earlier, all of the contracts that are offered by the trade stations have also been overhauled, in terms of what you have to do in the contracts and the rewards of the contracts, and additionally, several new types of contracts have been added, such as the bounty contract PvE, which previously these were only available in multiplayer and they were PvP, and you'd be paid to track down a player and kill them, where now they've added a single player version where you fight an NPC instead. And there are also hauling contracts, which are traditionally offered in space, and these give you a big cargo container that you have to grab, and you have to take that to another trade station to get your reward. And there's also a bunch of other types of contracts, both new ones and overhauled, and I played a couple of them in this preview video you can see on screen here, and since then I've also played a lot more of them, and I can tell you, it's a lot better. One of my big criticisms of Space Engineers before was that the economy system kind of sucked, mainly because the contract system kind of sucked. And it definitely feels a lot better now. There's a lot more danger, there's a lot more risk reward, there's a lot more combat involved in these, even the hauling ones. The economy system feels much more worthwhile to engage with now. But you're probably thinking, sure, you can complete contracts to get credits, but all you do is spend them at the store, and most of this stuff I can get anyway. I can build a proficient welder, I can build a ship, I can build a rover, I can grow food. Is it really that worth it to engage with the economy system? Well, that's where the next block comes in. This block here is the services terminal, which has 3 separate functions. 2 functions that can only be used at trade stations, and 1 function that can be used anywhere. If I go up to it and interact with it, you can see these functions at the top. These are storage services, repair services, and salvage services. You can see that I have this hauler ship docked to the station, and if I go to my services terminal and interact with it, on the storage services tab, and then go to active grids, you can see that I have my hauler here, and if I go down to the bottom right, I have the send to storage option, which if I click, it says my hauler will be sent to storage, freeing up 2140 PCU and 309 blocks. If I press yes, it's now gone, and if I go over here, you can see that my hauler ship is now gone, and if I go back to my services terminal, you can see that under stored grids, I have my hauler. So if I click on it and press the retrieve from storage option in the bottom right, you can see that my hauler will be retrieved from storage, press yes, and up here I have transit status where it says that my hauler will be retrieved in around 4 minutes. First of all, it's worth noting that this transit time is dependent on the size of the grid, so the bigger the grid, the more blocks and the more PCU it has, the longer it will take to retrieve from storage. However, you have the option to expedite this process. As you can see, if I hover over it, it will reduce the time by 50% at the cost of 134,000 credits. So if I click that, you can see now it's gone down to 1 minute from 2. And additionally, if you go to the world options, there is the option to disable the retrieval time, or make it slower, or make it faster. In single player, I would imagine you'd probably disable this, but in multiplayer, I can imagine it'd be quite useful for admins to put a slowdown on this. 3, 2, 1. So somewhere near the station, you can see that my ship has been spawned in. And it's also worth noting that whilst I use the same services terminal to store and retrieve this ship, you can also store grids at any terminal, and then retrieve that grid at any other terminal. So if I store my ship at this station again, and then take myself down to the planet, you can see I have the option to receive my ship here as well, and there you go, I've successfully moved my ship from the space station down to the planet. You can place down and build your own services terminal on your base and ships. However, if you do, it will only have the storage option, but you do get a couple of other additional options. For example, you have the option for precision mode down here, which as you can see spawns this white arrow and square you can see here. And if I go back to the services terminal, I can move it. So say I want my ship to spawn over there by the connector. I use precision mode to place the square there. And now if I store my respawn rover and then immediately retrieve it, it's going to take 45 seconds. I probably should have changed the world options. And there you go. You can see that when my rover was retrieved, it was placed exactly where the square was placed. And if you don't use precision mode, if you turn it off, and if I restore my grid and then re-retrieve it, you can see it randomly gets placed in a radius around where your service terminal is. So definitely precision mode is very useful on your own ships and bases. The last thing to mention about grid storage before we move on to the other features of the service terminal is that there is an option in the world settings to allow grids stored within the service terminal to have items in their inventory, which is off by default. If you come to my respawn rover, you can see that it has iron, nickel and silicon in the back of it. And if I go to store it, I get a warning telling me that an inventory is detected and that if it is sent to storage, it will clear the inventories and all the items will be placed on the ground. So if I press continue and turn around, you can see that a temporary container has been placed and everything that was inside the grid has now been placed inside that container. As previously mentioned, the 2 other features of the services terminal, the repair and salvage features, are exclusive to the trade stations. If I go to Salvage Services and click on my hauler, as this grid is predominantly owned by me, I can generate a salvage quote on the right hand side, and you can see by salvaging this grid, I will earn just below 5 million space credits. And you also get a bonus based on your faction reputation, which I believe caps out at 20%, or at least I haven't seen it higher than 20% so far. So if I accept, you can see that my hauler is gone, and I received my 5 million space credits. Now, as I said, this is for ships that are owned by you. This isn't for finding encounters out in the world and bringing them back to the stations, as those aren't owned by you, you won't be able to salvage them using the services terminal. Oh no! Apollo was hit by a rocket. That's such a shame. How could I possibly repair all of these damaged blocks? If you come to the service terminal and go to repair services, click on Apollo 11, generate repair quote, you can see that Apollo 11 has 113 damaged blocks and the total repair cost is 655,000-ish space credits. Accept offer, and if I go over to my blocks on the other side, you can see, wow, they've all been fixed. Isn't that incredible? So this doesn't repair and move blocks, obviously, because they're not there anymore, but it does repair partially welded or grinded down blocks. I come to my service terminal and go to repair services, generate quote. You can see this time it has 12 blocks. If I accept offer and repair, you can see that my unwelded blocks are welded up and my damaged blocks are welded up, but my missing blocks were not. And I know one of the big questions about this before this update came out was, will this repair projections? And currently it does not. I've done a little bit of experimenting. You can see I have an Apollo here that's completely unwelded up, and that doesn't appear in the repair services. So you can't just build an unwelded up ship in order to get a free build off. But after welding some blocks up on the side, you can see that Apollo unwelded now appears in the list. I think this might be because unwelded blocks don't have an owner, perhaps. But regardless, if I generate a repair quote, you can see that it's going to cost a whopping 120 million space credits in order to repair it. It does have 2 jump drives, so that's probably where the expenses come from. And it's able to do this with 710 of the blocks being damaged, so only 30 of them being welded up. So potentially this is some shortcut around building a ship yourself, although it doesn't really seem to be. I can understand why they didn't let it weld up projections, as it's supposed to be a repair service, not a build your ship service. Although, let's be honest, it's probably an engine limitation rather than a balance one. But I don't personally see an issue with it being able to repair projections, as this would both make it more useful as a repair feature, and also as a more expensive but engaging way of building ships for those that want a late game alternative to printing. Before we move on to the amazing new blocks added in this update, other than the service terminal, I'd quickly like to mention that there are a bunch of other improvements in this update that I haven't gone over. Safe zones have got a bunch of improvements. They've added the ability to rebind buttons for both joysticks and controllers. There's been a faction reputation overhaul, and so much more. So I'll link the full changelog of this update in the description below. But now, let's take a look at all the new blocks that have been added in this update. The services terminal is the only new functional block added in this update. However, that does not mean the other blocks added in this update aren't amazing. As part of the free update, a bunch of new structural blocks have been added, starting with the structural platform, which is a 5x5 block, which if I place down, you can see only costs 500 steel plates, as opposed to the 625 this many light armor blocks would cost. And more importantly, it only costs 1 PCU, as opposed to the 25 PCU that 25 light armors would cost. Now there is a couple of trade-offs to this. For starters, light armor deforms when it is damaged, so as I shoot you can see the blocks deform as they're damaged. But as I start shooting the structural platform, you can see that it does not deform like the light armor blocks do. If I go over to it with the welder, you can see that it's still taking damage. But that does mean that when this block is destroyed, it takes all of these blocks with it, whereas if your light armor was destroyed, at least the other 24 blocks will still be there. However, this block will still be extremely helpful for building your ships and bases, as the ability to just place down a 25 block platform with 1 steel plate will make building so much easier. There's 2 other variants of this. There is a corner variant that you can see here, and additionally there is a variant with a connector, which as you can see has a connector port on the top, and additionally has conveyor ports on all of these sides, and another one on the bottom. So this will be very good for creating an instant connector on your base, and also a very convenient way to conveyor everything up. And you can see if we come over to our trade stations, you can see that they are using these structural platform blocks. You can see there is one here at the center of this landing platform, and additionally a corner variant here on the platform. And the trade station that we were looking at earlier in space has the connector variant here. Additionally, if we come underneath our platform, you can see we have more structure blocks. This block here is a 3x3 diagonal beam, and there is another variant of it over here, which is called the structural frame. You can see that there are 3 different variants of the beam, with there being a 3x3 one, a 4x4 one, and a 5x5 one. And the frame is 3x3 just with a frame around it. And like their other structural counterparts, they are a much more performance friendly way of detailing your bases and ships, as each of them cost 1 PCU, whereas building something similar out of slopes and stuff would cost a considerably larger amount of PCU. if you own Space Engineers 2, you'll gain access to this, the Almagest Engineer Plushie, which is based on the Space Engineers 2 Engineer. And like the other plushies, you're able to recolor it to any color, so if you want a red one, you can do that. However, in real life, they only come in light blue. I should know, I have one sat right in front of me here. And also, I somehow own 3 of the damn things. Father, feed us! Get the clang out of my house! Also, Keen, I can't help but notice the omission of a cable on these plushies. Curious, I assume you're doing the cable plushie in the future, yeah? The Economy DLC pack, which as a reminder, we're doing a giveaway for later on, includes a number of new blocks, including this, the Safe Zone Type 2, which functionally is exactly the same as the base game Safe Zone, except that it spins. And as we all know, say it with me, I love spinning things. The problem with Keen making functional blocks like this that look so good and that spin like this is that it kind of makes me want to detail my ships and bases with them, but 5 zone chips for decoration? That's very expensive. For some cheaper decoration, we have these 2 blocks here, the small vivarium and the large vivarium, which as you can see are decorative blocks with a tree in them and some flowers and rocks at the bottom, and this one has a bigger tree in it and a bit more foliage below. And there are corner variations with these, as you can see, that have 2 of these sides filled in, and there is also a corner variant of the large one as well. And whilst you cannot get inside of them, they are glass on all sides. They make some excellent details for your ships and bases. When we were exploring the stations earlier, I showed off one of the new billboard blocks, which there are 2 variants, a flat variant you can see on the left and a round variant you can see on the right. And our flat variant has an LCD on both sides, which are separately customizable. As you can see, they are 2 separate screens. And our round variant has 3 different screens on it, which can all be individually customized. Unfortunately, it does not spin. It very much looks like it could spin, but you can just place it on a rotor to achieve the desired effect. The DLC includes 2 angled door blocks, the A variant and the B variant, with the main difference being the orientation. If I come to the A variant and open the door, you'll see that there is a panel above, and I can walk on through to this corridor block I've placed. And if I come to the B variant and open it up, you see once again there is a panel above me, and I can walk on through. But if I grab the B variant and rotate it, you can see from the outside it looks exactly the same as the A variant, but if I open it up, the panel is now in front of me, presumably indicating that I'm supposed to walk up, which isn't super helpful. I really like how these doors look. They kind of look like doors that you'd have on a dropship or something, just somewhere on the bottom of your ship to let you walk in, whereas a lot of other doors have to be placed sort of in the middle of your ship because they're square and they need to be squared off somewhere. So I feel like these door blocks have a lot of potential for new designs for ships and bases and stuff. There's a new set of window blocks called the narrow viewports, and there are 10 different variants of them, which you can see here. These are used to great effect on some of these stations, where they feel like proper armoured windows that you'd have on a space station, as opposed to a lot of the other windows, which feel a little bit thin to be withholding the vacuum of space. There's a lot of variants of these, presumably to fit with all the different types of slopes in the game, so I'm sure these would be a great addition to everyone's building arsenal. My favourite block in this DLC is the bulk cargo container, which is a cargo container that, if you can believe it, looks like a cargo container. There are 3 different variants of these. As you can see, the main difference in each of the variants is the texture they have on the side. I really like this one with the corrugated texture on the side. Previously, I would fake this kind of design using armor panels and small cargo containers. And it's worth noting that materials-wise, these are roughly double that of the base cargo container, which makes sense considering they're about double the size. And additionally, you can see that this one on the current world setting stores 8 million litres, and the vanilla large cargo container stores 4 million litres. So effectively, the bulk cargo container is 2 cargo containers stuck together. It is the definitive cargo container now. They can't top this. Keen, I challenge you to top this design for cargo containers. So, 2 more things to discuss. What's next? And the giveaway. For starters, they've said after this update, there will be the 2.10 update, which will be a custodian update focusing on bug fixes, system improvements, and overall gameplay, which sounds great. More stability, more improvements, more bug fixes are all things that our players are always asking for. Stellaris does custodian updates once or twice a year, where they go back and fix a bunch of bugs and also take some old content in the game and integrate it in with the new content. So it'll be very interesting to see if Space Engineers does that. They have said at the bottom they might try and seek in some decorative blocks, very interesting, and that Factorum might be hiding more technology that nobody has seen yet. This likely means that a new Prototech block will be coming in this update, a new endgame variant of a base game block. What Prototech block that could be, I have a pretty good idea, but we'll save that discussion for a future video. And then, after this custodian update, they've said there'll be another major update later this year, so Space Engineers 1 is definitely not dead yet. And they've said, you may remember that we promised another Warfare edition. Warfare 3? It's happening, guys. It's finally happening. After all these years of manifesting it into existence. Watch them not name it Warfare 3 now, just to spite me. And it sounds like we know what the focus of this Warfare 3 edition will be. Remember those NPCs I mentioned earlier? This is definitely 100% going to be the update that is going to add armed NPCs to stations and encounters. A thing that I never thought was going to happen, but oh my god guys, it's happening. Space Engineers once again getting another peak update. I know all of you will be very interested in a Warfare 3 update, so don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date with future Space Engineers news. And now, the giveaway. We're going to do the same thing we did last time we did the giveaway, and I'm going to ask the simple question of how many Space Engineers 2 plushies appeared in this video. That is both in the video footage and in real life. Just put the number of plushies and then the word plushies afterwards. So for example, if there was 1 plushie, comment 1 plushies below, and I'll pick the winners at the end of next week. And whilst I've got you, we've recently hit 75,000 subscribers, and as promised, I'll be releasing a very special video next, so if there's not a video for a couple of weeks, you know why. But after that, the aim is 100,000 subscribers. And what thing better to do for 100,000 subscribers than 100 days in Space Engineers?